Hello, everybody. Welcome to season 2 of Mix It Up with ML. I could not be more excited to kick off this new season with my dear friend, Abraham Cruz-Peña. And Abraham recently graduated from Princeton University last week, in fact. So big congratulations in order. And Abraham graduated from the School of Public Policy and International Affairs and got a certificate in entrepreneurship and French. So I'm super stoked to learn about Abraham's, life experience. We're going to take this podcast places and his interest in VC and startups. Abraham, thanks for coming on, my boy.
Dude, it is an absolute pleasure to be here. I am so happy to start season 2 strong.
Yes, sir.
It's such a pleasure, one, to catch up, but two, to have this opportunity to engage in a new novel way amidst COVID barriers,
Dude, this guy is eloquent as all hell. I love this guy. Can't wait to have him on. So Abraham, we like to start off the pods, with just some context for some listeners who may or may not, know the both of us. Yeah. And I like to have the guests just sort of talk about how we met and where it went, bro. And I'm not sure how we met. I'm trying to remember. So I want to hear what you have to say here.
No, yeah, definitely. The first thing that pops in my mind, I also was like, where did we meet? We definitely met through Cap and Gown, the eating club at Princeton. We were both a part of. For listeners who don't know what Cap and Gown is, we met at Cap and Gown. You were like this vivacious, tall presence, and I was like, I want to know him. I want to speak to him. I want to know what his mind is about, and I'm so glad I did, because it's just fruitful to have someone as positive in my life as you, man. Like, you bring this energy, this aura with you that's like, it's incomparable, in other words, and I appreciate it. And we met through Cap and Gown at some party, I think.
Some party, bro.
Some party.
This is ringing a bell for sure. Thank you for the kind words, bro. Just know I feel the same way about you. Honestly, not just saying it. I love the energy. And, I think we started this pod by I commented on one of your Instagrams, I think. And I was just like, what's up, my boy? And then you were like, let's get on the pod. It just happened, bro. I love the spontaneity. Let's do it, dude.
For sure. Let's go, dude. I'm excited.
Brother. All right. So, one of the main things that you and I talked about briefly before, coming on this pod, and you mentioned this is what you're interested in talking about, it's just your desire to speak on the immigrant experience at Princeton University, right? So to lead into that, can you just talk a little bit more about sort of your background and then tell us more about, when, how, where, why, you got interested in attending Princeton, and sort of like, let's go through that journey. Let's talk about it. And lots of other things, like once we get to Princeton, but
for sure.
I want to hear about that background, dude.
That's a great question. You're pacing, great pacing. Basically, I'm Abraham, like everyone. I'm Abraham. Nice to meet you. I'm from South Texas. Okay, we're right on the southernmost part of the U.S. It's like 10 minutes from the Mexican border. I was born in the U.S., but I was raised in Mexico for like 4 or 5 years when I was young, when I was a baby. And then my mom got offered a job to work in the U.S., so then we're like, okay, to the U.S. And obviously the education, right? Education is the most important thing. That's why immigrants come to this country, education. And so I came to the U.S. I went to an Episcopalian, small Episcopalian private school. So we had chapel every morning, bro.
Wow, bro.
Yeah, and I was raised by like amazing motherly teachers. They were all white, which is interesting because they were like, no Spanish is allowed. So I had to kind of mask that part of me.
Okay.
At a young age, even at Princeton, we can get more of that into that.
Absolutely.
So I had to mask this other identity, like identity at home. I can only speak Spanish. My parents don't speak English. But at school, prim proper English. So it was interesting. Always meeting the two cultures. Obviously had a riff off between within my mind, within my body. But it wasn't until like I got later at Princeton, ending Princeton, I noticed like that has an effect on you when you have a Mexican American with Mexican cultures, Mexican traditions, Mexican upbringing. When you integrate that into a U.S. system, there's clashing. There's clashing of ideals, clashing of values, clashing of just way of life, and like standard of life is just much different, and like priorities are different. So parsing through that has been like a whole journey, like Lotito, and so yeah, that's a little more about like I'm Mexican American, like I said. My parents immigrated to the U.S. Both of them come from like poverty, so they did so much for me and my brother, my older
Mhm.
brother, and my only job growing up was school. They were like, "Your job is school. We'll handle the rest."
Right.
And I was like, "Sure, I'm cool with that. I'm game." I was a spoiled kid. Uh, Everything I wanted, I was like, "I want this toy." My mom was like, "Sure, sure."
Love the
So
candor.
right, I was a spoiled kid. Not like Princeton spoiled, but like Texas spoiled, you know?
Right.
And the thing is, growing up, like again, nice school. You have your parents telling you to work really hard in school, push yourself. Um, then something happened when I was in the fifth grade, like something with like immigration, and my mom lost her job, and it was like it's strange. Like my family's like my dad was like the stay-at-home dad. He would help my mom. My mom was the income maker, which is super
Interesting.
strange for Mexican families,
Mhm.
right? So then I don't know when that happened. That our standard of living went from like 100 to like low, right? And so I was like, wow, this is out of my control. I can't do anything about this. So little old, let's try to be excellent. Abraham was like, let's get to work. I got a job at 13. I started working really young, on the
Mm.
weekends when after sports go to work.
What'd you
Um,
do?
I I was a cashier and a skating instructor at a local skating rink, bro.
Unreal.
Yeah, I was. It was interesting. The way people treat you is not the best. So that job really humbled me. And then I doubled down on school, man. Uh, I doubled down on athletics. I played football and I
I
ran track.
saw in high school you played football. I saw
Yeah, in
that,
high
dude.
school. Yeah. I tore both of my ACLs, not together, like a year apart. So it's been a journey, man. It's been a journey. But yeah, I tried really hard in school because like the sacrifices my parents did to come to the US, like it's a burden. It's a burden on whether you want it or not, whether you accept it or not, it's there.
Mm.
And
A burden
and
on you, you
a
mean?
burden on me, yeah, on the
Yes.
child. They're like,
Yes.
"Oh, we want him to get a better education. Let's give it to him." But there are consequences. No matter like even though they're bad or good, I'm super privileged. I know I am, but there are psychological consequences when you integrate a Mexican kid into a US system and you throw him out in the deep end. And then when you get into Princeton, bro, even like treacherous waters. That's why the one constant in my life has been like my attitude and my like the way I treat people. That's the only constant that I am in control of. And ever since then, I'm just doubling down on that and making sure that that's in check. That is like feeding of those around me, so that this is selfish, but so they can feed me as well, and so that
Mm.
it's like a community, right?
Right.
And yeah, I tried really hard in high school again. I got a job, and I think I grew up really fast. I grew up really fast, and that like spoiled kid was like gone, like non-existent.
Mm.
Uh, so yeah, it's been a roller coaster, and I had an opportunity to go to a summer program at Princeton called LIDA, and I think this is how I first found out about Princeton. I
Got
mean, I
it.
knew about Princeton through like movies and like, oh, it's Princeton. But it wasn't until going to this program called LEADA, Leadership Enterprise for a Diverse America, that that I really like actually, hey, this might be possible for me. It's a program for first generation low income students in high school. Your junior year of high school, you spent 7 weeks at Princeton in Forbes College,
Wow.
and you do like four things. The first thing is like standardized test prep.
Okay.
They gave like professional tutors, private tutors, in a classroom environment. We do college visits, man. We do visit
Mhm.
all most of the Ivies are really really selective, liberal arts colleges like Georgetown, or where else did we go? I don't Columbia. I'm spacing out.
Right. Whatever. Yeah,
Um,
we know the vibe.
right. And the third thing they do is a class called Aspects of Leadership, where you kind of just deconstruct from like a pedagogy perspective, like a academic perspective, like academic old writings and literature on leadership and how that plays out into society today.
Mm.
So that was a huge culture shock because it was kids from all over the country, man. Someone from Hawaii, someone from Ohio, different races like Black, Asian American, right? Like, um, so it was a big culture shock, and it was that then and there where it was all these first gen kids not knowing how to pave the way, and all of them had the same struggle, but had the same goal. And I found
Mm.
solace in having the same goal amongst us ourselves, despite the fact that we didn't agree on everything and we were different. The one place all of us found solace is that we're reaching higher education. And I came back to the valley. The place where I'm from is called the Valley, the Rio Grande Valley.
Right.
So I came back to the Valley, and I had
Was
this
that like
new.
when you came back?
it was alienating, man. Like, I have this new mentality, I have this new attitude of life, new culture shock. It opened my eyes to like completely different world. From a very homogenous Latino community. It's like we are the majority. Like we're 95% of the population is some semblance of Latino or Latina or Latinidad. And yeah, so I came back. I had this new goal. I was like, hey, I can go to Princeton, or hey, I can go to an Ivy League. Princeton was the only Ivy I applied to, other than Stanford. I got waitlisted at Stanford. I got into Princeton.
There you go.
But it wasn't me, right? It was me, but it was with an effort, with a village, right? I think people fail to hype up those that are in their village that got them to where they are. Whether it was my parents, whether it was the people that treated me strangely at the cashier skating instructor job. It was all these moments in your life, and they lead up to like this one monumentous moment, getting into Princeton, getting into an Ivy League. You don't know how to react. There's no rule book, there's no guidebook, and if there is, I need it or to give it to other people. But yeah, I got in, and I applied, right? But it was through the letter of recommendation from the program leader. It was through through seeing all these kids that previously I was in the cohort 12, but there's like all these other cohorts from years prior. All of them went to all of them went to really competitive universities. And I think in my class, I think like 25 students went to Stanford, 15 of us went to Princeton, and it was a 100-person cohort.
Yeah.
So we're going to these institutions, but I didn't feel alone, right? So even though I was alone, I wasn't alone. If I couldn't share it with my community in the Valley. I could share it with the people that I spent the summer with. And it was then and there. It was like in high school, I think there was a very toxic culture on like academics that are like, I have to be the best. And freshman year, completely bought into it. Sophomore year, completely bought into it. Junior year, still bought into it, but like a little bit less. And senior year, I stopped. Like when the second you stop focusing on like competing with everyone else and just compete with yourself, life becomes this blissful. Like this is obviously it's kind of romanticized, but life becomes this blissful. Like I'm my biggest weakness and I'm my biggest strength. And yeah, so it was then and there that I was like, hey, I can do this. I'm gonna focus on myself. I'm gonna focus on how I treat people. I'm gonna stop doing all-nighters senior year because they're bad for your health. But yeah, and so I got in, luckily. It's a little long-winded, but I hope I pass on like. And as an immigrant, I didn't even talk about it when I got into Princeton.
Yeah, keep going.
Princeton outlines a very like high degree of diversity in their racial.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to ask you about. Yeah, keep
going. I have to
disagree,
man. I have to very much disagree. I found it very difficult to connect with my Latino roots at first, like the first year. But then I joined this Latin dance company called Mosflow. And I don't know if you ever knew or met David Lopera. He was class of 2018.
Great guy.
He is the one that kind of like, he was my mentor at Princeton. He's a Colombian. And I got into the Mosflow. We really vibed. There, I didn't have to explain my culture. I got to dance. I got to express my body in a new way, which is wonderful. Like, dancing salsa, bachata, merengue, cumbia, all these things that were my culture. But I mean, at Princeton, it feels a little bit strange to, like, I have to ask for permission to do that, So this is a place where I didn't have to ask for permission.
Right.
I didn't have to like worry if others were like, I didn't have to worry about taking up space with my identity.
Yes.
And but yeah, this is a community that I felt comforted by. Yeah, and it's very difficult, I think, on campus as like. The reason about diversity is that, like, I think Princeton. I love Princeton. It's an awesome
place. Yeah,
place.
absolutely.
But there are some things that should be called out on or like can be improved. And I think Princeton does a really good job at like their diversity numbers are like international diversity, like international Latinos, and not like American, like people that are either from in the U.S., like Mexican Americans. I wish it was there, but I wish there was like a more dedicated effort to stay connected within a campus, because half the battle is obviously letting them in,
right?
Letting us in, right? But that's the next part is like the work doesn't stop there. It's how can you make those people, once you're let in, integrate and not feel as alone and not feel like tokenized.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of time to adjust to that. But you know, I found small communities like friends here, friends here. I never had like a dedicated friend group at Princeton. It was always like floating.
Mm-hmm.
And I have people I love. I have people I trust. I have people that I relied on. But yeah. Does that make any sense?
Bro, it makes total sense. And my question for you is, do you feel like that distinction is between sort of like racial and ethnic diversity versus like socioeconomic diversity? Would you agree with that? Or is that too, you know, I guess clear cut or not getting at the ambiguity? Would you agree with that?
I think it might not be getting at the ambiguity, but I was also part of a CIFP. So to your
Right.
point about socioeconomic status,
Right.
most of the most of us were not white.
Right.
In CIFP or in FSI, I did the summer program going into Princeton called FSI.
Mm-hmm.
It was like you take 2 classes for credit. It's for first gen students, kind of just getting acclimated to Princeton.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful experience. I made friends. Without that program, I would have never made friends. I wouldn't have like a strong bearing my first year, my first semester.
Right.
So I'm also super thankful for that. But to your point, I think so. Maybe there is like a linkage between like that diversity of race and then that diversity of socioeconomic status.
Right. And so I guess my question would be, you know, what kind of things would you have wanted or did you find helpful? Like you talked about mass flow or what kind of things could a place like Princeton or really any other college in America for anybody who's listening to this, right? Who might resonate with your background, like what sort of things should they look for on a campus or like what can these universities do to improve that feeling, right? Because we have those pipeline programs like LIDA, right? But then even when you get in, like you said, the work doesn't stop there. What can these places do to make the environments more inclusive?
For sure. I definitely think like I'm not well versed in this at all.
Right.
But if I had to comment like initial first thoughts, I think the responsibility might be on students,
Mm,
right? Like I think blaming so much or putting so much onus on the university
I love that.
or on a university is a lot. Like they're already trying and they're already doing a lot, but I think it's all dependent on what like the current existing student body population of like say first generation students, immigrants, what their needs are. Because I feel like if you have a cookie cutter approach, if I give you an answer right now,
Mm,
I don't want it to be like a cookie. It's like everything is. I don't agree with cookie cutter like solutions. I think everything is always best tailored to the existing population at hand. So I don't know if it's a survey asking us like, what would you have, like as an alumni now, Abraham, this is the university speaking, what would you have wished your freshman year? I think maybe like, but the thing is, I also don't want to like, for example, I would have enjoyed like a primer with all like the people that resonate or have the same affinity as I do, like Latino
mm,
or Spanish speaking or immigrant or first generation. I feel like there was like a not a ceremony, but like like an introduction tailored to us. They're like, but that also again is like we don't want to like it's blurry, it's murky water because you also
right.
don't want to divide. Right, the whole purpose
Yes.
of education is meshing.
Yes.
But I don't know, maybe it is that's what we need, like an introduction, like, hey, we see you. One,
Mm,
congratulations, you're valid. Two, we see you. Three, see each other.
yes.
They
Yes.
shouldn't. I don't know if doing anything further, but just like, hey, see each other.
Right.
And I also found like it's also like strange unless you don't hear someone speaking Spanish or if someone's white passing like me, which I'm
Right.
like it's a big privilege. Uh, you don't want to impose and be like, hey, are you Latino or are you Latina? Like no, you're like that's. I mean, you could like my personality sometimes like I'll just do that, but it's
Yeah.
also like like it's also maybe off putting because if they're not like
Mm,
oh sorry, but
mhm.
it's not as common to be like just upfront like hey well, what are you right
Right. Right.
um because that's just one part of your identity.
Right.
So all that to say, I think the onus is on the students, but I think the university can do is just show who's here,
Mm,
right? And
mm,
that's like half the battle. Once we know, then we're like okay well now we have to do something about it.
right.
It's like a give and take. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. And I think I love what you said about making sure that people see each other. And I think for me, Moss Flow did a little bit of that, right? Where like I came to some of y'all's shows, right?
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful opportunity for somebody like me who's white to go and experience, your culture and everything that comes with that, and just a bite-sized experience. And then I feel like that even brought me and you closer together, right?
For
Because
sure.
I could like talk to you about that at Cap and Gown. So I think I love what you said about it being on the students as well, right? To like put together organizations like that and get each other to come to each other's stuff. So I like that, as opposed to putting all the onus on the admin,
Yeah.
right? I like that. I like that.
But it also might be difficult. Sorry, the last thing I'll say is
No, yeah.
the onus is on us. That's what I said, right? But it becomes difficult when there are organizations on Princeton's campus that are like Latino centric.
Mhm.
It's just like participation's low, or something always happen. Like people don't really feel connected when in those spaces. So
Why
it's
is that?
I don't know. I don't know, man. Like I couldn't tell you. Like there's
Couldn't
just
tell
so
me.
many like there's like a gala. There was like a gala once, and that was awesome. It was like a Latinx gala,
Yeah.
super awesome. But it's like we only congregate, or most for my own experience, lived experience.
Yeah.
I only went to those events because like there were celebrations, and it was a special occasion.
Mhm.
And I noticed that participation would only be for just like big events such as that, and participation for all the other like smaller things.
Mm.
I noticed that there was less, and I noticed that there was just like not as much hype or energy or
Mm.
buy-in. And I think partly it has to do with Princeton's academic rigor. Like we are inundated with so much bullshit, man. Like we barely know. So if they want us to like focus on academics, if we're in a
Right.
sport, focus on a sport. If you're in an organization, focus. There's no time to check check how you're doing, like, and then make sure you're finding your tribe. You just have to like
Yes.
go with the punches.
Right. And bro, I think on that point, you know, um, two things come to mind. One, do you think that has to do with what you were saying? Because I want to hear more about this. What you were saying about the clash between like your Mexican culture and trying to fit into like American culture.
Oh,
And
that's good.
do you think that sort of, gets heightened at Princeton, or is that kind of like, what do you think about that? Is that contributing to sort of people getting to Princeton, and there is this community, but then the participation might not be as high? Do you think that has something to do with it? And then after you answer that, I kind of want to dive into like building healthy relationships at Princeton, like because
For
we
sure.
talked about that as well.
For
But
sure.
yeah, I want to hear your thoughts here.
No, that's a great question, man. The way you pose it is wonderful.
Yeah.
Um, I do agree that when you enter Princeton and you have different like values, priorities from back home, like let's say Mexican culture is very big on family,
Get
very big
specific
on
here. Yeah, I want to
loyalty
hear
with your
this.
friends, right? These
Yeah.
two things: loyalty with your loyalty to your brethren, right? To your like people, your tribe.
Yeah.
But when you enter Princeton, it's a very like it's kind of like very individualistic mindset. Like everyone's on their own journey. Every student is gonna do what's best for them.
Mm.
I mean, obviously you have friends, but at the end of the day, only you have yourself. And so I felt like I had to abandon some of those like primal like Latinidad instincts of like doing stuff in groups or doing things together.
Mm.
It was much more difficult to do that. So I feel like I had to abandon it to adapt to the U.S. individualistic
Exactly.
mindset. And it's like I don't know if there's an alternative, right? There's no fix to this. It's just bringing it up more and more gives awareness, and maybe in the awareness there can be change potentially.
Yes.
But as far as like a cookie cutter like way to fix this, I don't know. I'm just sharing with you like oftentimes you enter into this like what do you call it, like the big big pond, big fish in a big pond. This is Princeton. It's a new one.
Something like that. Yeah.
Big
Small fish,
pond.
big pond, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Princeton's big fish or big pond, right?
True. I felt like a
Like
small fish though, just to be
oh, okay,
honest.
fair, fair. Sorry, I mean I think all of us feel like small fishes,
Right,
but
right.
when we
No, I'm
realize
playing.
it in the grand scheme of things, um, you have to if you want to swim, if you want to like thrive, you really have to like buy into the not buy in, but you kind of have to like not forfeit your values either, or
Mm,
forfeit your way of life back home, but you have to adjust to what's available and what's there.
mm,
And when there's no time and no bandwidth to do things like to hang out, to have a conversation, it really throws you off, right? It threw me off my game because that's what I was used to. I was used to like having time for actual real deep connections. Going to your question about building healthy relationships. it's time is the biggest. No, it's not time. It's commitment. Like people either commit to it or don't, and time is a factor in that the decision to commit or not.
Yes.
Um, but I think Princeton. I mean, Well, as a Princeton student, I always blame time, but in reality, it's like how committed are you to the friendship, or how committed are you to meeting with people? But it's all about trade offs. Like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna study this piece. I'm not gonna study for this final.
Mm,
No, I'm gonna go make the meaningful connection with this individual. I'm gonna commit to it because I think that'll provide more stability for me, and then like I don't know, heightened pleasure in your life.
right.
You know?
I think looking back, I don't think I did that as well as I would have liked to, bro, to be honest. Um, like in high school, in a weird way, like I kind of look at it like, oh, I was, super high achieving and all this
Yeah,
and whatnot. But I think in reality, I had a much better sense of balance than I had when I entered Princeton and when I was at Princeton, bro. I think it was different, bro. Like my friends would come over and we would just hang out on Friday and Saturday nights. You know what I mean? And we would sit and talk. And looking back, that didn't happen as much as I would have liked it to have
yeah,
happened at Princeton, right? It's like I until my senior year, and my senior year is when I think I started to shift a little bit.
yeah.
And like I kind of gave up some of my responsibilities, which felt really weird and alienating and didn't know what to do. But bro, it's just so few moments at Princeton where I just sat and like hung out with my friends on the couch. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I don't know if you
You count them
resonate
on your
with that.
fingers
Yes.
because there's
And
so
that
few.
and that feels sad to think about, right?
I agree.
Did you kind of have that experience? And like sort of if so, like how do you process that? How do you feel about that? Has it changed you at all?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't thought more like deeply into it.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, when I meant it, like you can count these instances where everyone's just sitting. No one's worried about the pizza. No one's worried about the next party. No one's worried about and just connecting, just
Mm,
getting to know each other. I feel like there's moments are so few. I feel like I experienced them in community action in CA when I led the CA trip.
bro, we both did that. I didn't know you
Oh
did
yeah,
that.
that's how we met too. Maybe
We met.
CA.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, that's
Unreal.
how we met. Yes.
Yes, yes. Keep going.
Um, right, facilitating discussions and then entering in those discussions. Like that's
Mm,
that's why I felt like, oh, I'm connecting.
yes.
When I was in RCA, and we would have like my Z's, I felt like I was connected to them when I was sharing like and hearing, sharing and hearing.
Yeah.
OA at the beginning of Princeton,
Mhm.
we like bundled up in our tents. Everything was raining. We had to connect. We were
Yes.
sharing our narratives, right? So there's very few spaces where you can intentionally build connections.
Yes.
So I wish there was more organic ways that students, like former students, could have done that. But I think
Yes.
again, the onus is on us to create those spaces, to design our lives in a way that allows us to make those connections.
Bro, I really love that, right? Because we're harkening back to what you said, right? It's on us. Yes, it's a rigorous place, but that's what we asked for. That's what we
Yeah,
signed up
we
for.
signed up
And
for,
to
man.
be honest, brother, the world is a rigorous place, right? Like we're about to head into, and that's what Princeton is so great for, is it prepares you, I think, for what the world is like. And I'm about to go to med school. You're about to enter, you might pursue an MBA and stuff. I want to ask you obviously about
Probably,
this and
probably.
go forward. But bro, it only gets busier, I think, and you only get more responsibilities. So at least for me, a lot of that unlearning has happened in the gap year where I'm like, man, it's never like the email inbox never going to hit. Like if it hits zero, it's going to increase again. You know what I mean? You're going to have more tasks, and it's just about really being okay with like putting that to the side and sort of like if that's what your values are. And I think
Yeah,
for me, that's what it is, bro. Like I don't want to be working nonstop all the time, right?
yeah,
Because like, and so I don't know. We hear this a lot, like self-care, et cetera, and it's improving in our culture, right? But I think it's really, really hard to actually do it. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah, for sure. I hear you.
Yeah. Well,
I
okay,
agree. Yeah, I agree.
bro. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. And I think, on this vein, now that you've, gotten to Princeton, you're there,
Yeah.
and you get really into you started, I think it was called Prospect Student Ventures. Did my
With some
homework,
friends. Yeah, yeah, with some friends, definitely. I
right?
was
And
like on the founding team. Yeah,
right,
I didn't start it, but I was on the founding team, building it up.
right. Okay, gotcha. Very humble man, love it. um can we just talk about that? Can we talk about venture capital? Can we talk about,
Yeah, definitely.
your interests and, because I want to educate myself. This is another reason why I love doing these podcasts, like you
For
mentioned.
sure. For sure.
Like, why am I doing this? I love learning from my friends. So for the novices, can you lay out what is venture capital?
Yeah, for sure.
What does that mean?
Yeah,
And like, why did you get interested in this? Like, take me on that journey.
for sure. Like the easiest way I can explain venture capital is think of a company. Let's start slow. Think of a company like Uber.
Yeah.
Think of a company like Lyft or companies that are IPO'd now.
Yeah.
It would not be
What does
possible
IPO
for their
mean for the
sorry,
listeners?
they would not be public in the market. They would
Okay.
not be publicly traded companies.
Yep.
And but they weren't always like that. There's an intermediary of a person, of an individual that
Mhm.
gets, let's say, an Uber from its like small startup phase
Right.
to the public offering, what it is now. Everyone knows what it is,
Mhm.
right? That intermediary, there's a bunch, right? You can go to like a private equity firm. You can go to, which is like, again, a private equity firm is like just builds companies and grows companies through debt and collateral and
Mhm.
smart money investments.
Right.
Another option is venture capital,
Right.
where you like a thing like Shark Tank. All those people sitting in the Shark Tank watching the person pitch their new company are venture capitalists.
Love it.
They're people that are. It's a risky game, man. All of it's about risk.
Mhm.
But venture capital is the intermediary that provides the capital for a stake of the company, small company and startup, to get to a higher degree.
Yeah.
So the name of the game of venture capital is you have money, you pool up a money in your fund,
Yeah.
no, a traditional venture capital fund,
Right.
and depending on what industry you're expert in, that's what you'll invest in. There's also different stages of venture capital. There's like early stage, or like really early companies that are barely starting.
Mhm.
There's mid stage, right? And then there's late stage, where like, okay, these companies are big now. People know their name. There's big money on the line,
Right.
right? So there's different stages. So you can be a venture capital in the early stage, mid stage, or late stage. You can be a
Mhm.
venture capitalist in a different industry, tech, digital space, digital health, like watches, like smart
Mhm.
watches, digital
Mhm.
health. You can be a venture capitalist in healthcare. I have a great friend of mine. I don't know if you know Nico Fotopoulos.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, that kid knows so much about venture capital, but like the healthcare side, the healthcare side of it,
Okay.
biotech, right? So there's different subsections. Whatever industry you want, you can potentially just work there, so long as the startup is in that industry
Right.
as a venture capital. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And how I got into it was doing the entrepreneurship certificate at Princeton. My first initial exposure to venture capital was, what was it? I didn't know what it was until like sophomore year, man.
Right.
I was working at a tech startup in Detroit called Sift.
Mhm.
It's a, oh, I even have a sticker here. I mean, a pin. This
There you
is like
go.
the Sift logo. It's a healthcare. It's a software as a service company.
Okay.
So they offer. Think of it like an internal LinkedIn for really big companies.
Okay.
It helps you find talent within your own company
Mhm.
because it can be really hard when you have a big company.
Got it.
I was also the sales rep, so I can give you a whole pitch. Of that.
I can imagine. Go
And
ahead.
yeah, like I was like, okay, this is a startup. And then we all shared a building called the Madison in Detroit.
Mhm.
And right above us was a venture capital firm. And it was, I mean, I went to go peek around. Like I was like, oh, hello. I mean, they're very venture capitalists are very busy people. But I
Yeah.
was like, what is this? What do you do? And I asked like, hey, what do you do?
I love that
Oh, I'm an
initiative.
associate. I'm
I
an
love it.
associate, or like I'm a analyst at this DVP. It's called Detroit Venture Partners.
Okay.
We grow startups onto the next stage of their lives, of their like lives, right? Think of a venture capitalist as a parent
Mhm.
to a company, and you're taking care of the kid, whether it's providing money or whether it's providing connections to the entrepreneur.
Right.
I get really excited about this. Sorry, I talk too fast.
Dude, this is why I want to ask you about it. Keep going.
Yeah,
I can tell you love it.
and there's something just I really there's something there that I want to further explore.
Okay.
And I think I think entrepreneurship can be, you can meet it at an intersection where it's like, obviously it's for profit,
Mm.
is American capitalism, right?
Yes.
But social impact can also potentially be,
Mhm.
social impact can also be thrown in there and weaved into it. So for in the future, I definitely want to see how I can find a for profit and then like the social impact integrated into it as a whole, it's hard, right? I need to know more. I don't know anything. I mean, I know very little about the space,
Right.
even though I know a good amount. There's so much learning that never stops.
Right.
Does that make sense? Probably like yeah. I want to either do like in the digital health, like the healthcare space, or the cloud space in the
Yes.
future.
Yes. Makes total sense, bro. And that's what I sort of wanted to ask you about, right? Because I've talked about finance and whatnot with a couple of people on the pod, right? Because I'm trying to get a little bit more interested in it because I love what you said about trying to find that intersection, right? Because we don't have to get too into politics if you don't want to, really. But like, a lot of people critique capitalism, right? And rightly so for a lot of reasons. I can understand, and but at the same time, I have this feeling where it's like this can be a very positive sum game if done ethically and correctly, right? If we can have somebody whose mission is for profit, but they're also trying to have social impact, like can we even go even farther? Like I work for a nonprofit, right? I completely understand this space, right? I mean, not completely, but like the importance of funding and the power of that and what it can do, bro. Like, I just want to hear a little bit more about, maybe you don't know now, but just like ways you feel that you can try to merge those two interests, right?
Yeah. There are organizations that you can form them into like what's called a B Corp, which is more like social oriented.
Yeah.
Instead of just an LLC, which
Mm.
is like a way you can structure a company. It's probably the most common LLC.
Okay.
Or so there are different ways you can structure a company to the point where you have the for profit obviously demands to your shareholders, to your board, but you also have the social mission. That's called a B Corp.
Yeah.
I think I'm hopefully I'm not mixing the name up.
You're good, dude.
But honestly, there will be trade-offs. I think there's like that's the ideal. The ideal is where you can be profitable company, but you also have like some social orientation and some social giving.
Right.
There's evident trade-offs that maybe are like they're tough pills to swallow. 'Cause
Okay.
sometimes like if you really want to be successful, you have to focus on the profits.
Yeah.
If you really want to have impact,
Yeah.
focus on make sure your profits are good and then give. Or then like do the social impact side. There are organizations that are starting to kind of like integrate the two.
Yeah.
And there's other companies that like appear to be social, like for like social impact. They're
Okay.
completely not. Like I read a case study once on Tom's.
Yeah. And that guy was on Shark Tank too. Talk to me.
Yeah. I read a case study on the company once. How okay, this is a business model where right you buy one and then the social impact portion is that they give a pair of shoes to someone else in another
One
country.
pair, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And what I found was or what that actual research said is like the places that they were giving the shoes away
Yeah.
to in those areas, those communities, where like the biggest need aren't shoes. The biggest needs are like financial stability or something like other things, and like it was ruining the local shoe market of certain places, like because they were like, oh, we have these brand new shoes, and you're killing off part of like, even though it's like small, you're killing off someone's work or job, right? So I feel like organizations that have this like buy one and we'll donate another one, realistically need to like really just reassess, man, because sometimes like does that community instead of giving him that pair of shoes, what about food or what about access to water or what access to education, right? Instead of shoes,
Right.
like it's a nice thing. It's like, I think it's the thing that plays on like our egos to like
Right.
give,
Right.
but without actually seeking to understand the implications that social impact oriented companies
Got it.
actually have, right?
Got
So
it.
I think the biggest issue between this for profit and social impact,
Yeah.
like what kind of impact is the goal?
Okay.
I worked with my professor at Princeton is Mauricio Miller. He started a thing called Family Independent Initiative, FII. And it's we worked with entrepreneurs in Liberia, in Africa, and we found out their biggest needs were like money for education.
Yeah.
And but as entrepreneurs, they didn't have an ecosystem in which they can like thrive on.
Right.
So what we did is like kind of like created this thing that helped first of all, we understood what their needs were. We didn't project what we thought their needs were, which is a
Okay.
lot of humans do,
Right.
like this like savior complex.
Yeah.
And instead of us projecting what their needs are, like, oh, they need so much food, they need so much, which they do, but their biggest need, like they're fine, like they're stable. What they needed was like education, right? So what we did is we helped them raise capital. We created this thing like, do you know what crowdsourcing is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, crowdsourcing is like, for people watching, is like a platform where
GoFundMe.
yeah, you start like an account, you have like a purpose, and like people who like the idea go put money in there. Basically we provided a platform for entrepreneurs to get crowdsourcing money from anywhere in the world, in order to facilitate their businesses, in order to allow them to enter into entrepreneurship and enter into, like, some of them were tradespeople, like they would make wood. Some of them were selling jewelry that they made at home.
Okay.
It's all small scale, it's tiny, but what we did was we got to their needs and we just provided the platform through which they could thrive. We weren't prescribing them a path to success,
Got
right?
it.
Because American capitalism is much different than like any other form of maybe capitalism in Africa, right?
Okay.
There's different infrastructures. There's different, obviously physical commercial infrastructure is different, but like I think the biggest issue, I'm going on a rant.
Dude, I love it. Keep going. What are the
thing
biggest
here is
differences and whatnot?
yeah, just like I think people need to like understand that if you're trying to be like have social impact, just measure what kind of social impact you want. It's
Okay.
measuring social impact is super difficult. It's one of the most difficult things because
I know.
you
Yeah.
can't measure like access to, I mean, I don't know, I'm not gonna go there, but it's difficult to measure impact, societal positive societal impact. It's not like money where you can measure your return on investment of let's say a venture capitalist. Boom, I invest 100K and 10 million and I get 15 million back. That's 5 million return.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's obviously larger ROI, but you can't measure social impact as black and white. And so yeah, I'm gonna stop there.
I want you to keep going. But wow, bro, that's making me think a lot, right? Because I've even, faced some semblances of those challenges in my nonprofit, just like trying, because I work for a Reach Out and Read of Greater New York. It's basically an early literacy nonprofit, right?
Nice.
We provide books through, the pediatric visit, right? That's the nuts and bolts of what we do. And it's very, very difficult to track any of the children long term, right? And
Yeah.
we do have research studies for sure. It's very heavily research backed.
Yeah.
But also, like, you want to see those long term benefits, right? So
Yeah.
I love what you said about trying to measure your social impact, and you feel like, for example, Tom's, like, it's not a measure of social impact necessarily to just say that we gave 10 million shoes.
Yes.
Right. Because we don't understand how that affects the other part of the economy. Right.
Yeah.
And so for you, is this something that you want to do? You mentioned that, you're thinking about it, but like, have you said healthcare maybe? And I'm interested in healthcare, obviously. Right. So like, what are your thoughts there? And is that, a road you want to go down?
I think life has like different phases. And right now I'm going to a phase where I probably will end up getting an MBA somewhere.
Okay.
But before I go, I need to go for the right reasons. And I haven't found those reasons yet. That's why I haven't pulled the plug. That's why I haven't like application GRE. All that to say, I think this current phase of like 10 years, I think I need to establish myself in like a deeper understanding of markets, a deeper understanding of the economy, a deeper understanding of how adulting is.
Yes.
Before I try to potentially when I enter that space, because I will.
Got it.
I need to be ready that my like, my Coliseum in here, my internal self is ready to be that selfless, or like the life of a social entrepreneur. I don't know, man. The life is left turn here, right turn here. I might end up like in a completely different space and mentality. But right now,
yes,
I think what I'm focusing on is just like getting in my bearing.
Okay.
I think I've had an institution, for the last 20 years of my life.
Yes.
An institution. And now it's like there's no institution except like this.
Yes.
And yeah.
And bro, and I feel like I'm very glad you brought this back to this point, because I feel like I didn't touch on this as much as I had wanted to earlier on in our conversation. Just what we talked about of you trying to resolve that clash, right? And
Yeah.
is that some of what you're referring to? And, just like psychological well-being, right? And your values, right? Like, if you want to talk about it, we have the space here. No
Yeah,
worries
for
if
sure. I
not.
appreciate it.
Because I love what you said, bro, because you're kind of catching me on my question, right? And calling me out in terms of like, people don't gotta know what they want to do this early. Like, you're 22, maybe like 23, you know what I'm saying? Like, I love the approach of like, what am I going to do next year? What am I going to do right now type thing, as opposed to that long term
Yeah.
feeling like you have to know what you want to do.
Yeah.
But
No, I
yeah,
agree. I agree. Um, Also, like on the same topic you just mentioned, like if you
yeah,
have a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, like you need to account for error, you need to account for change of priorities, you need to
yes.
account for things that are out of your control. And like to be that in control is like it's not problematic, but I think it's limiting to the lived
Mm,
experience now and to the lived experience. I don't know. I mean, we're definitely planners, you and me, right? We just graduated from Princeton, or I just graduated from Princeton. You graduated a little bit earlier, but we have plans, we have aspirations, but like thinking that far out not is like a little, it's pressure. It's just
yes.
pressure that you don't necessarily need at the moment. Everyone has different
Mm,
circumstances, I understand, and sometimes that pressure is like you have to do it because
your
you aren't
family's
afforded the
depending on you.
exactly. Thank you, you understood it perfectly. um right, so that's my view on that, but I don't know what I will be doing.
Yeah.
I'm next year I'm working for a healthcare company in Denver.
Okay.
I'm working in like their finance slash hopefully getting to their venture arm.
Yeah.
uh it's called a kidney dialysis company called DaVita,
Hmm.
and I'm working specific like finances for like once like the hospital services of DaVita.
Yeah.
So hopefully I can get my bearings there, understand some financial modeling, which I definitely need more practice in because Princeton's too theoretical, man.
Yeah.
But back to your question. Sorry, I went on a tangent, but just to
Love
share
it.
my plans, right?
Share.
That whole mental thing. I've been seeing a therapist for like a year and a half now, and through Princeton. Princeton actually paid for everything,
Love it.
and so I have never been more like thankful to the institution for that experience because it's like it's really helpful when there's this clash. And my parents don't speak English, man. Like I can't go to them and be like, "Hey, I'm thinking all these complex thoughts. How do I parse them? Nothing. It's.
Yes.
I think when you grow up in the U.S. and you speak English, like all your high operating, high functioning thoughts are in English. And having to
Yes.
translate them into Spanish, cumbersome to the point where like not only is it emotionally taxing, now it's mentally taxing. Like no.
Mm,
Barrier to entry is really high to ask for my parents. So
mm.
then therapy really helped me have a soundboard with myself. I think of it as a soundboard, like you're in like a studio, and then you just speak out, and then it speaks back to you. And
Yes.
it's been really helpful to guide my mind through this journey of the clash, right?
Yes.
Where the clash can sometimes make you. It's made me feel harsh on myself.
Yes.
I'm a very harsh critic on myself,
Right.
and I've
Me
been I've
too.
been
I can
I've been
relate.
kinder. I've been kinder to myself after therapy.
Mm,
Been patient
mm.
with myself, and yeah, I recommend therapy to anyone who. No, I think everyone, dude. Like maybe it isn't for everyone, but for me, I've come to understand the world in a different way and not let externalities too much affect up here.
Mm.
Right? Seeing your body is like a vessel. You're
Talk
just
to me,
occupying it.
Cruz. Talk to me, Cruz. I'm loving this. Keep going.
Your body's a vessel. Your mind is the one that's like just how you choose to react to something is like really, really, I don't know. Uh, but I think for me, the clash has definitely felt easier to handle. Um, the distinction between values from Mexico to values in the US has been a lot
Mm.
easier to parse. Like what's right, what's wrong.
Right.
There is no right and wrong. There is no right and wrong. I think the biggest like lesson that I wish I could tell my younger self is like if you think there's a right, I mean obviously there's morals, but if you think there's one right way to do this or one right way or wrong way to think about this, like it's just a binary view of the world that is doing the world an injustice, doing our existing reality an injustice because
Mm.
the world is it's all gray space.
Yes.
I mean, aside from
Yes.
like I mean, you're not gonna kill anyone. Like obviously that's like immoral, like morally that's wrong.
Right.
But there's like about values and cultures. Like let's say the Mexican culture um, it's more easy to forego like staying up all night and working on this paper, right? I want to go and have dinner with my friends and just like
Correct.
have dinner for like 6 hours
Yeah.
or 4 hours, whatever. That's normal. That's casual. Like 4 or 5 hours just meeting up and eating, and like that's one way to live life. And then there's like the other life where it's like, okay, I'm gonna hunker down. I'm gonna forfeit my friends because I'm an individual mindset. I'm in like
Yes.
individualist right
Yes.
now. My own success is my biggest goal, which is fine. It's different, right? But it's the American calling out to me.
Hmm.
Um, and just gonna hunker down and just work. And I'm gonna completely ignore this other like relationship building or like less like robotic and less pressurized environment, right? So it's like this American speaking to me to like the Mexican speaking to me, and it's like, you just have there's no one right way to do it. It's just different.
Yes.
It's just different. What are your
Yeah.
priorities? Ask yourself, what are your priorities? My priorities are definitely more on the Mexican side, and I have
Mm.
not felt comfortable saying that until now, I guess. Until now speaking it. Um because I value because I value connections more than career success. 10 out of
Mm.
10. Or I value connectivity on this planet, the short time we have on it. I value it way more than prestige now, or I value it way more than money. Money's like transitory. Like it's
Mm.
you know.
Yes. And this is, venture capitalist guy saying this, right? And this is important for people to hear, right? I think it is really important to hear. And bro, I just want to say, and this is, a little scary for me too, but your vulnerability is helping me as well. Cause bro, honestly, I've been going to therapy since like sophomore year of college as well, dude.
Let's go.
I'm sharing that on the airwaves now. Hopefully people can, find some inspiration from that, bro, because I think it's changed my life. It's literally changed my life. And so much of that has to do with, you know, the values-based living that you're talking about, right? You're talking about priorities. We can all call them different things, right? But I think it's about values, right? And what are your values? And I think for me, um, it was like a lot of, you know, things that I was telling myself in my mind were keeping me from living like the life that I want to live and the life that I want to value, right? And I
Yeah.
think, just sharing that just to resonate with you, just to connect with you, because you shared that with me. Um, because that clash, I think, could be super difficult. And I just, like you said, I recommend anybody, it doesn't matter who you are. I think it's a beautiful thing to work through that stuff. And it's not like super easy either. It's not like, oh, you go there to feel good.
No,
You know,
no.
and this is what you're talking about. It's like you work on yourself and it's hard, but I think it's so, so valuable. So just wanted to, yeah, get that out there, right?
I love that. I appreciate your vulnerability, like reciprocating the vulnerability. That's my
Yeah.
biggest. The one thing, like the biggest
Yes.
high in my life is like when vulnerability is reciprocated.
Right.
There's no other feeling that's more blissful to me than that.
Right. Right. I mean, same here, bro. And so just hopefully if anybody's listening, like, and is thinking about, going to therapy, just working on themselves, we need to get more therapy, availability to people as well. It's very
Yeah,
important. I
it's
think
very
there's huge,
expensive.
very expensive, huge access, gap there. I just think it's really important, bro. I just hope people can hear this and gain some inspiration from it.
Yeah, and the thing is, you're not alone. You know.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely, bro. Um, Man, this is amazing. Um, so I guess like on that front, bro, as we're kind of wrapping up here towards the end, um, who is Abraham outside of all this stuff, bro? Outside of, right? And this is more in line of what we're just talking about, but who is Cruz outside of, Princeton, outside of venture capital, what you're
Yeah.
working on, right? Like, what are some of the things that you're doing that, bring you joy? I know in college there's not a lot of space for this,
Yeah,
right?
man.
But like, what are your interests outside of all this, man?
That's it. Yeah, lovely. You see this? Hold on. You see this scar? Right, right there.
Absolutely.
That's from me jumping a fence yesterday when I was plastered at a UT grad party. I'm in Austin,
Okay.
and all my friends graduated, or a bunch of my high school friends graduated from UT,
Right.
and I like there was like I dropped something and they assumed I was really drunk, so they were like, hey, can you please leave? I was like, sure. I
Yeah.
went around the back. It was like this grad party, whatever.
Yeah.
I went around the back. There was like this big fence. I was like, let's do it. I miss my friends. I'm not gonna explain this to my friends. Completely just ruined my pants. I get across. I jumped the fence. I'm back
Right.
in the party. the worst thing is we leave 15 minutes later to like the post.
Brutal.
You know, like I'm right now I'm in a moment of like I'm celebrating. I like to
Yeah.
party.
Yeah.
I like to enjoy experiences with people that I care about.
Yeah.
You know, life is short
Yeah.
and life is fleeting. I've noticed that a lot.
Yes.
And I think the Mexican in me is like, or not the Mexican, but like the Scorpio kind of like wants to be life of the party is really like that's me also.
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
student, I'm academic, I'm whatever, venture capital, whatever. I still like to have fun.
Yes.
And I think COVID has made it more difficult to it's given me an opportunity to find different ways to play, whether it's partying or whether it's dancing.
Yeah.
I found more ways to play. I love to dance.
Yeah. I wanted to
That's
ask you
also
about
who I am.
this.
I can show you a little bachata, a little cumbia another time. I'll
Yeah.
give you a lesson.
Yeah.
You know, I'm happy to give you a lesson if you ask politely. I will
Yeah.
give you a lesson. Well, I love video games. I like playing video games too. You know,
Yeah.
my
What
downtime I
kind?
play like like PC gaming.
Okay.
Maybe not the best habit, but I think I'm obsessed. I'm also obsessed with like making new interactions with people. So I'm always trying to find new people,
Yes.
trying to see how other people view the world because I
Yes.
think it'll better. My friend, this is my friend.
There you go. I love it.
This will better inform my current understanding of my dad taught me this. He said, in order to understand your culture the best, you have to understand and you have to go out and explore and venture the world in other cultures. So you better know you have an opportunity to better know yours in the context of all the other ones. So I love that, and I think I do myself a really great service by stepping out of my comfort zone and talking to new people, stepping out of my comfort zone and making new connections, making meaningful connections such as this. Right, this is beautiful. I love this.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's 100%. Who I am.
100%.
That's who I try to be.
Yeah.
And who I am changes on a day-to-day basis, changes on a weekly basis. I don't think there's a definite like, oh, this is who I, right? I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Bro, I love that. And I think like, I feel like I've talked about this several times on the pod at this point, but like trying to find new ways to move my body and exercise, right? And like dancing is that, it's a beautiful thing, brother. Yeah. Right? Like it's a form of exercise, right? But it can also make you really, really happy. And like, I feel like that's something that I definitely want to pursue at least a little bit more. I don't even know if it would be just like dancing in my room by myself type thing. Cause I love to dance.
That could be it. That could be it.
You know, I love to dance.
I know you get down. I know you get down on the dance floor.
But like, just thinking about other ways to move your body and, you know, whether it's climbing fences, whatever it is, dude, love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you also speak French, right?
Yes. Give you a little taste if you want, but I've been studying it for like 9 years now. I think it's so much fun. I think my first language was Spanish, so learning French as a Spanish speaker, do it. It's easy. Like it's an easy transition. It's not easy, but it's easier than if you didn't speak Spanish.
Okay.
I need to be careful what I say, right?
Yeah.
I get roasted. Mais oui, je parle français et je peux partager quelque chose avec toi. Je sais pas. Mais merci beaucoup pour cette opportunité, Lotito. Right? I said thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Yeah.
Bro, I understood that because I took, you know, French in high school and, you know, some at Princeton, bro. But that was going to be my question. Like my last question is like, is it possible for me to like continue learning? Because I want to learn Spanish, brother. Honestly, to be honest, I kind of regret taking French because I want to learn Spanish because I think it might be more useful for me. Do you think that it's like possible for me to learn this now in medical school or no? How can I do this?
Oh,
I need to learn another language, dude.
If you're in medical school, man, if you want to forfeit sleep, sure, but I would say like no.
Yeah.
Right. I think the biggest thing is like integrating into like the best way that I know people learn languages through studying, like how people learn languages is integrating into the culture, integrating into that, and like that'll like have to like that's the fastest way to do it. Like it's not the only way. Yeah. It's the fastest, most efficient, and most like I guess easiest way because it's like you have to talk. Right.
So if there's a way I can kind of get abroad and do it, like that's one of the biggest things I want to do in my life, dude. And like I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
Yes,
and,
you are.
And just like kind of immerse myself. And I want to learn Spanish, brother. So I'm gonna be hitting you up. potentially for
Always.
some lessons there, dude.
Always. Always. Just give me a time and give me some leeway, and then I'll boom, do it.
Brother Cruz, I just appreciate you, man. I think we're kind of close to an hour
For sure,
at
man.
this point, bro. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing. Hope people found some inspiration from this guy. You're a legend, bro. I appreciate
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you too. This is awesome, and whoever watching, have a wonderful day.
Yes, sir. Peace out.